friends. Today I have a very sort of abstract visual to share with you because I feel that the imagination is probably the most important thing of all. So I have a little food for your imagination. But before I give you the visual, I want to first share with you this map. This is a map that I shared in one of my earlier videos, and this just shows all of the 7 continents as they really are. This is what pilots use, airline pilots. This map is how our Earth is actually configured. This white part out here is Antarctica, because Antarctica is sort of a wall which forms a sort of a bowl, a container for all of this water and the land masses as well. So what I'm going to be talking to you about is the moon, and I would like for you to acknowledge the equator, which is right here. Is this the equator down here? It seems far south, but yeah, this is the equator down here. So it goes above, it goes north of Brazil, and yeah, like that. And this is the trajectory of the moon and the sun and the stars. They all turn like this. Okay, they all go around and around like that. So, and they're up high. So the moon theoretically could see this whole picture all at once. So that's kind of the premise for what I'm wanting to share. I'm gonna try to share. I'm gonna try to say it because it's something that I was thinking about last night, and I'll try to put the pieces together. But basically, the moon represents our reflection. Okay, the moon is reflective. It reflects the sun's light. It is a reflector, and it has to do with memory. Spiritually speaking, it has to do with memory. It has to do with the past, because the moon has been in the sky the whole entire time that humanity's been on the earth, and probably even before humanity was on the earth. It's seen it all. It's a satellite that just goes around every 365 days a year. It goes around and around, and it never disappears. It never goes away. This is what we believe today, and this is the context that I'm using today, because I have seen evidence to suggest that there were 2 moons in the sky at a point, and that, you know, that moons burn out, and then there's a new moon and stuff like that. So at any rate, let's just take it for granted that the moon that we have now is the same moon that we've always had since the very beginning of our experience here on the earth, and the earth's experience in general. So let's just take that for granted. The moon could be sort of a storage place in a way, and it could also be a lens in a way that is capturing this entire picture all at the same time. So say you're the moon, right? And you always face the same direction. It always faces the same direction. It doesn't waver or waggle. It always is facing you. Okay? No matter where you are on the earth, the moon is always facing front, always facing forward. So what I'm suggesting is that that's a lens that captures the image in real time. What's happening right now on the earth, everywhere, all at once, is being captured through that lens. And that lens is transmitting that information up to heaven. And as that information is transferred up to heaven, God's will is informed. It's really just as simple as that. So what I'm saying is that the moon is is heaven's eyeball into the earth and what's going on down here. That's heaven's eyeball, because we're living moment to moment to moment, and God's will is updating and upgrading, or downgrading for some people, or for some situations, but it's upgrading and it's downgrading moment to moment to moment to moment, perpetually. God's will is changing all the time. That's why we cannot depend on books and dogma from the past, because it just doesn't apply. So much of it doesn't apply anymore. You know, there are some universal truths that will always apply, such as karma is the only law. That's my universal truth that will always apply. It applied yesterday, today, and it will apply tomorrow. And karma is the law. It's the only law, and it's a unique experience for each person. What books and dogma and all of that tries to do is it tries to homogenize everyone's experience into a similar experience, so that people can have a similar, you know, manifestation of their karma, which isn't reality. That's not how it works. Everyone is on their own unique individual path. So heaven is I don't think heaven really is watching from like above us, you know, like I think it's watching through an organized fashion. Like maybe the moon is the lens, but I'm just having the insight now that maybe the sun could also be a lens. But I just don't think it is, because the sun is penetrating the earth, right? The sun is the masculine principle, the penetrator, and the earth is the receiver, right? So the earth is receiving the sun. The sun is not taking anything, you know, the sun is not receiving the earth. Whereas the moon is receiving the earth, because the moon is the satellite of the earth. It's the reflection of the human experience from day one. So I was thinking, the moon is kind of our go-between between heaven and earth. I think the actual moon, whatever it is, because I don't know what it is. It is the only thing that I feel that I don't know what it is. I think I know what the sun is. I think I have some idea about what the stars are, and I do believe that the stars and the planets are just like Earth. I think those are Earth's, you know, they are a primer field, which if you're curious about what we're on and what this really is, I highly recommend the primer fields, or primer fields, PRIMER fields, parts 1, 2, and 3. There's a 4 as well, but the first 3 are very poignant, because what it shows is how every single atom in creation is constructed in such a way that there are two this is really hard to explain. There are two like opposing magnetic fields, right? And they're represented by bowls. They do this experiment where they take 2 bowls and they put a magnet. These bowls are magnetized, and these magnets, they get really close like this, and they create a magnetic field, and within that field there's a sun that is formed. And there's also a confinement dome, and that's what we're on. We're inside of a primer field, where we have a dome that is called a confinement dome, and we have a sun, and the dome spins around. The earth doesn't spin, the earth doesn't move, the field itself doesn't move. It just sits there in space. That's why you can photograph the heavenly bodies out there in space, and they look the same all the time. They don't move. They don't move, they don't shift, the galaxies and stuff, because they're fixed. They're a fixed plane of existence, and so are we. We are a fixed plane of existence. We're not traveling, you know, we're not wandering stars. Now the planets and the wandering stars, I don't really have anything to say about that right now. I don't even really want to talk about that right now. But the moon itself, I feel, is the informer to heaven of what's going on the earth. So it is through that portal that earth becomes, that heaven becomes informed, and that God's will becomes informed, so that God's will can change moment to moment to moment. God is not partial. The Creator is not partial. The Creator is not going, I want this to happen, like, this is what I want. I do believe that God has a specific outcome that he made this whole thing for, or that it made the whole earth for. There is an outcome in general, and that outcome is always trying to manifest all the time, which is the reason why we exist. That reason is always ready to manifest, always, all the time, ready to manifest, ready. And all it needs to manifest is the people's individual will has to align with the will of the divine. That is all that has to happen. So until that happens, the divine has to, sort of negotiate with us, this is what we want. This is how we want to do our world. We're not ready to have the whole divine will of God manifesting through us on our earth, so that we can become, miniature versions of the Christ in this body and in this life, and so that we can have control over our weather, so that we can have control over our earth, over our resources, our minerals, our foliage, our water. That's our stuff, and we should have control over that. When we align our will with the will of God, we become inundated with wisdom, and we become a conduit for God's will, which is like, it's electrical. It's electrical, and it's magnetic, and it's wisdom. It's knowledge of self coming from heaven, and it flows through us to each other, because it's a pyramid, and there are people at the top of the pyramid that can receive the bulk of it, the bulk of the download, and then that flows through that individual out to the rest, all the way down to the bottom layers of the pyramid. And every layer in the pyramid is important. All of it is important. And this energy from heaven, this knowledge of God's will, it flows through the top of the pyramid all the way down to the bottom of the pyramid, but it doesn't stop at the human world. It flows out to the animals, to the plants, and down into the earth itself. Because this earth is our turf. It's our body. This earth is the earth of our mother, and she is very patient. She's waiting to be evolved too. As human beings have an evolutionary path, and we have an evolution to execute. Although I would argue that these days it seems a lot like the evolution is devolving and taking steps backwards at times. I will admit that it's sort of a touch and go situation, because we're in a wartime right now, and we are facing a war between the controllers and the ones who don't want us to evolve. They don't want us to know God's will. They don't want us to ever reach the point where we realize who they are. We don't need them. We don't need to be controlled by anybody. We don't need to be told any damn thing by anybody. We have karma, and karma informs us and lets us know everything that we need to know at the moment, right when we need to know it. So we really don't need the controllers for anything. So we're engaged in that struggle with them, and some of us are really struggling, and some of us are not. Some of us don't know that this is a war. Some of us are very drinking the Kool-Aid and kicking it with the official narratives, because they don't really fully grasp the concept that we are under attack by the controllers, because they want to own you. They want to own your soul. They want to own your wealth and your inheritance from heaven. They want to own everything. They want to own the earth itself. but they can't really download the goods from heaven. So they're not really able to transmute the earth. Okay, they're not able to do that. But what they can do is transmute the earth by terraforming the earth through geoengineering. Everything that God does and everything that heaven does and is about is mocked by the elites. They make their version of it so that we can worship them and we can think, oh, wow, this is so great. You know, they've made the eye in the sky, right? I feel that the eye in the sky, which you can see in the Mission Impossible movies, and then that represents the moon. The moon is the actual eye in the sky. The moon is the eye in the sky. It sees everything from the very beginning, and it informs heaven. I was going to go off on a tangent about the moon, but I'm not going to, because, okay, I will. I have this theory that the moon, because if you look at the moon, you'll see a big scar, right? It's ugly. It's terrible. It looks like someone tried to destroy the moon, tried to knock the moon out of the sky. And that's what I was thinking, like, it must have been a hell of a war back in the day, because that is an ugly scar. That is a really bad scar on the face of the moon. The moon has not been hit by meteorites. There's not anything flying around up in here, okay? I'm going to tell you that whether you believe me or not, it's up to you to research it on your own, but we are under a confinement dome, and the confinement dome is only 22,000 feet high. I mean, 22,000 miles high. Wait a minute. No, it's 122,000 feet. So that's like 22 miles high. It's like 22 miles high. That's only as high as we can go. And you'll see if you watch the Red Bull, the guy who jumped from the highest point, the guy, it's a Red Bull guy. He jumped off of a balloon, but he went all the way up to the very tippity tip top that you can go. And that's 123,000 feet. That's as high as you can go. You can't go any higher because there's a confinement dome, and we can't get out of it no matter what we do, even if we shoot rockets at it. And that's exactly what they're doing. Elon Musk, all the time, all those rockets that you see, and they're so powerful. They're so powerful. They got so much force, but they can't crack it. They just can't damage the dome. But I think Elon Musk is trying to damage it by just aiming the rocket at the same place over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because, so let me get to my theory. So here's my theory about the moon and why it has a big scar on it. I believe that after Jesus was crucified, it was on. It was on. It was time to wreck shop. Like, it was just this world had to get over with. It had to be destroyed. And the way that it was destroyed was through natural events, volcanoes mainly, and then of course the flood, which put out the fire. But there was fire and brimstone initially, fire and brimstone like crazy. It was just volcanoes that we can't even imagine what a volcano is, because we don't really have that infrastructure anymore to support that kind of destruction, natural destruction, because man has been cutting down all the trees. And so when you're cutting down all the trees, when you're exploding underground all the time, you're fracking, you're doing all, they have completely changed the possibilities. We'll never have this kind of apocalypse again. We could have a technological apocalypse, and if they are able to break through that dome, if they're able to even crack it a little, we might have another great flood. And I think that's what they're trying to accomplish by shooting those big rockets at the dome. Because all they're doing, if you ever watch the rocket launch, if you haven't, then I highly recommend that you go and watch some videos of rocket launches. You're gonna see that the rocket goes up, right, and then what happens? It just comes back down. It can't go out anywhere. You're not going nowhere. You're just coming right back down. So it goes up to the top, and it hits the top, tink, and then it comes back. So there's a lot of videos that you'll find showing GoPro cameras that people put on balloons, and the balloon goes all the way up to the top. When you release a balloon, up into the air that has helium, it's going to go all the way up to the top of the dome. It goes all the way up to the top of the world, and then it hits the top of the dome, and then there's a crashing sound, like a tink, you know, and then it just comes spiraling down, and you'll see the GoPro camera spiraling. You got to watch some of that footage so that you realize that we are in a confinement here. We're in a closed system. There's no rocks flying through here, you know, to hit something or anything like that. Okay, it's very calm, it's very serene, and there's footage of it. There's GoPro footage of, you know, what it looks like at the top. And I also want to say about this that we are not allowed to fly hot air balloons without a pilot's license. So just imagine the difference between flying an airplane and flying a hot air balloon. That's two different machines completely, entirely. For one thing, a hot air balloon doesn't require very much effort, right? I mean, all you need is to, like, you know how to put your oxygen on, you know, when you need it, and know how to, like, steer or whatever. I mean, it's not like flying an airplane, but they require you to have a pilot's license in order to operate a hot air balloon. And this is why, because NASA has balloons all up there, all parked up there. That's how they get the best pictures of space, because they get right up on it. They get right up on the dome, and it's gas, it's condensed gas, but it's so condensed and it's so dense of gas that it's glass, that it's almost glass, but it's not brittle like glass, because if it was, they'd be able to break it. So what I think is happening is that they're ramming into this very dense gas with all this force that they can. They're using all the force that they can to ram into it, and then they just goes like this. And then their rocket comes back down, because it's very dense, because above those layers is more heavy gases all the way out to the troposphere and all, you know, all out there, outer space and stuff. So I know this is not following a linear conversation, and I apologize for that, but I'm just being inspired to explain some of my theories that are esoteric, and that you won't find, you just won't find, because they come from my mind, they come from my imagination. The things that I'm saying about the dome are, like I said, verifiable as far as how far up you can go. You can only go up 123,000 feet. That's a fact. You can't go up any higher than that. So there was something else I wanted to say about the mockery. You know, they made the eye in the sky, which is a camera that can see everything on the whole earth all at once. You can see it in the Lucy movie as well. That is a mockery of what the moon is, so that we can worship their technology. They're gonna impress us and show us, ooh, look what we can do. You know, when actually that's what we can do ourselves. We don't need their technology. We don't need their junk, their cheap gadgets and whatever to be able to, you know, to be able to wow ourselves and to amaze ourselves. Because this is our world. This is our earth, you know. This is ours. This is our karma. We are here for a reason. And I think that's a long enough rant. I'm gonna leave it at that. Let me know if it made sense to you.